Welcome to The Explainer. So, here's a question for you. How does a boy, someone who's mocked for his size, haunted by a really brutal childhood, grow up to become an iron-fisted dictator? I mean, a guy who would rule an entire nation for almost 40 years.
Well, that's exactly the story we're diving into today. The story of Francisco Franco. It's a journey that'll take us all the way from the schoolyard taunts that really shaped him as a kid to the absolute total power that would define his 40-year reign over Spain.
And you know, it all seems to start with this deep, burning insecurity. See, he was just 5'4", that's 1.63 meters. A young Francisco was, well, an easy target. And that constant mockery about his size, it became this wound that, honestly, would never really heal.
So let's get into it. His childhood wasn't just tough. You could call it a crucible, something that forged this cold, severe, and, dangerously ambitious personality.
Okay, so at home, he was basically caught between two totally different worlds. On one side, you've got his father, a guy he absolutely loathed, an abusive, alcoholic naval captain who just up and abandoned the family. And on the other side, his mother. He clung to her world, which was all about strict, pious Catholicism and just iron-willed self-control.
So how does a kid like that cope? Well, he started to compensate for those feelings of weakness with these really calculated acts of cruelty. There's this story where he deliberately hurts his own sister, and then, and this is just chilling, he supposedly remarks on the smell of burning flesh. It's a shocking glimpse into a mind that, even that young, seems to be completely missing any sense of empathy.
Now, he couldn't follow his father into the Navy, so he joined the Army instead. And honestly, this is where everything changes for him. It was in the incredibly brutal colonial war in Morocco that Francisco Franco would, you could say, truly find his calling.
Right, so as one of these Africanistas, as they were called, he built this reputation for being two things at once, incredibly courageous, but also absolutely, utterly ruthless. We're talking extreme violence, not just against soldiers, but against civilians too. He even commanded the notorious Spanish Foreign Legion. But here's the thing that made him different. While all his peers were out drinking and womanizing, Franco stayed disciplined, pious, and just laser-focused.
And you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at his own diary entries. They're incredibly telling. It's clear he didn't just tolerate terror. No, he embraced it. He saw it as a perfectly legitimate and, effective tool for getting what he wanted.
And the craziest parts? This kind of brutality wasn't punished. Oh no, it was rewarded. His rise through the military ranks was absolutely meteoric. I mean, by the time he was just 33, he was one of the youngest generals in all of Europe. Think about that.
So all these methods of control and terror that Franco had perfected over in Africa, well, they were about to be brought home. He was about to unleash them on his own country, right as Spain itself was sliding into total chaos.
Okay, so what was happening in Spain? The monarchy falls, a new republic pops up, and tensions are just skyrocketing. For a guy like Franco, the election of the left-wing Popular Front, well, that was an absolutely intolerable threat. So he and a bunch of other generals, they launch a coup. But it fails. It doesn't seize control. And the result? The entire nation is plunged into a devastating civil war.
And let's be clear here, this war was just a complete atrocity on both sides. The Republican Red Terror was undeniably brutal, no question. But Franco's White Terror, that was something else entirely. It was a cold, systematic campaign of pure annihilation. We're talking an estimated 150,000 deaths. And again, his own words reveal his terrifying endgame. This wasn't just about winning a war for him. No, it was about the complete, total elimination of anyone and everyone who stood in his way.
So the Civil War is over. He's won. And let's not forget, it was with some pretty crucial help from Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. Franco sees his moment, and he grabs it. He starts to consolidate absolute power, building a brand new Spain entirely in his own image.
And what did that look like? Well, his regime was built on a foundation of just rigid control. You had strict nationalism, authoritarian Catholicism, and this fierce anti-communism. All of it was enforced by a single political party, brutal censorship, and, chillingly, a secret police force that was actually inspired by the Gestapo. His cruelty reached into the most personal, intimate parts of life. I mean, this is hard to even comprehend, but in one of the regime's darkest secrets, there was a state-sponsored program that systematically kidnapped babies.
an estimated 300,000 babies taken from families they called undesirable and sold to regime supporters. Why? To make sure they were raised with the correct ideology.
So, Franco finally dies in 1975, but his rule, which lasted nearly 4 decades, left these incredibly deep wounds that, Spain is still trying to heal from today.
And if you want a perfect symbol of this division, look no further than his own massive mausoleum. He had it built, by political prisoners, by the way, to honor the heroes from his side of the Civil War. But over time, it just became this incredibly painful symbol of the dictatorship. So painful, in fact, that his body was finally dug up and moved in 2019. His death did eventually open the door to democracy, and in a twist, it was his hand-picked successor, King Juan Carlos I, who steered the country that way. But this left Spain with a huge, profound dilemma. How do you move forward as a nation when the people who committed decades of atrocities were never brought to justice? And that, right there, remains the central question for Spain today. It's a nation that is still, literally, unearthing the secrets of its painful past from unmarked graves. A nation still debating the legacy of that small, bullied boy who grew up to become its absolute master.